Take it. Got it! Boston wins!
Two legends in basketball analysis with over 70 years combined experience. This is the Bob Ryan and Jeff Goodman podcast.
NBA, some college.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Ryan and Goodman podcast. I'm Jeff Goodman. He is Bob Ryan, and Gary Tangway is he's in Costa Rica. Bob, he's in the sun, and you are not. I'll say that he is in the sun, and I think it's cold up there in Massachusetts.
It was I think it was about 18 degrees. It was this morning. I think something like that. Yeah. Anyway, yes. So he's sun and fun. That's good.
All right. Well. Prize Picks. We're brought to you by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of CLNS Media Network. Pick more, pick less with Prize Picks. All right, Bob. Let's get to first of all the. Can we call them the struggling Boston Celtics now that they've lost 2 games in a row? Can we do that? Is that fair?
Well, it's not just that. It's 4 out of 7, and it's one notch above struggling. There's something, I don't know. There's a little malaise going on at the moment. I mean, I don't like what I feel, the feel of it at all. And it's not just the idea that they're so 3-point centric and that threes aren't falling. Which is always part of the deal. We know that it's always going to be part of the deal, and on all that. But defensively, they're not the same defensive team they're not the team that they got to be and they should be. That's as simple as that. And I don't know if it's schemes or I don't know if it's just the want to, but Joe Mazzulla and company they got to solve it because nobody's afraid of them. The last year's over. I'm telling you, and we saw right away Cleveland was emboldened, and they are. By the way, they have a 4-game lead over the Celtics here as we get to Christmas, and they're not the only good team around either. Milwaukee has found itself a little bit in the East, and then we're going to the Knicks. I'm telling you, they got my attention opening night. Even though the Celtics pounded them, they scored a lot of points. And I said, if they play the same kind of offense the next 81 games, they're going to win 55 games. And guess what, folks? They're a damn good offensive team right now with their core 6, and it is only 6.
Yeah, I'll say this.
That's their issue.
Going back to the Celtics, I'll say this is it's going to be hard. Like, this isn't a team, and again, you can go back and really tell me about how those Celtics championship teams were or those Lakers championship teams were. They had each other to motivate them. I just feel like that's what this Celtics team is missing. They're not taking Cleveland seriously, Bob. They're not. I can tell you, like, and I'm not saying they don't think Cleveland's a good team, because I know they think they are, but they're not scared. They're not intimidated. Their biggest issue is themselves. We know that, and motivation. And around the holiday time, you wonder if it's just a little bit tougher to get up for every game. And I know they should be up for the Sixers and Embiid and Maxey and those guys, but I do think there's a little bit of, hey, we're going to be able to turn it on when we want to turn it on here. And I'm not going to get overly concerned about this because I just think it's where we're at we're not, again, they don't have that team, number one, and we're not in the 80s. We're not in the 70s or 80s where I think guys were a little bit more self-motivated and had fewer distractions than they have today. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to figure it out, but I'm not overly concerned. I wish they had another team that would motivate them, though. I do.
That's a good point you just made there. There's no social media that Larry had to worry about or Magic had to worry about at all 40 years ago, of course. And you're right. They were aware of each other all the time. And they both, Larry and Magic, would circle that dates on the calendar, and I mean that literally. And it was you were always aware of what they were doing every day. How'd the Lakers do? And secondarily, the 76ers in the beginning of the 80s. The 76ers and Celtics were each winning 60 games, and the East was a combat. One year we had to go down to the last day of the season to determine the Eastern Conference. And that was like talk about a
and Larry
playoff
was
game.
built differently. Larry was built differently than Jason Tatum, right? Like those are the two stars. You want to compare them. They're very different. Again, I'm not saying like Tatum, I think the knock on Tatum is he's not a killer and he's not tough enough. And like, I think by today's standards, he's fine in those regards. Like, obviously, if you put him, 30, 40 years ago, he probably doesn't stand up. But how many killers are there right now? How many guys out there right now in the NBA are guys that you would say, like, hey, they're going to rip your throat out? Like, they're going to come every single – LeBron's one of them. He might be one of one. I mean, they're at KD, maybe?
A guy who happens to be in the news is always finding a way that fits that description. And as much as anybody in the league, it is his description. It is his ID, and that's Jimmy Butler. Yeah. And once again, Jimmy Butler is a source of controversy about. Now he declared, according to sources, he's once out of Miami before the trading deadline, and to which Pat Riley has replied, "No. I'm not trading you. I don't care if you walk at the end of the year, but I'm not trading you." Yeah, that's very interesting. But anyway, he does fit that description, and you're right. I don't know how many other guys I can say. I would say if he were a little younger, and it would really matter that much, I'd say Draymond Green. But Draymond is he's on the back nine. There's no doubt about that. So
even Jimmy Butler. I mean, Jimmy Butler's 35. Like, do you really? And his contract, I think it ends at the end of this year. Like, you're not paying Jimmy Butler max money at 35. He's been banged up the last couple of years. I know he's played well in the playoffs, but I'm not mortgaging a whole lot for Jimmy Butler, who, oh, by the way, also has been a chemistry killer at times throughout his career. So, in Miami, it's worked because it's kind of been the Jimmy Butler show, right? It's been his show, his team, his franchise for the most part. And he's won enough, especially in the postseason a couple of years ago, that nobody's really questioned it. But I think if you put him somewhere else, I don't know. I've known Jimmy Butler a long, long time, Bob. And the Jimmy Butler that I know today is not the Jimmy Butler I knew 15 years ago. He has changed. A lot of people call him Hollywood Jimmy. And again, listen, is he tough? Sure. Does he play hard when he's on the court? Sure. I wouldn't be giving up anything close to max money for 36-year-old Jimmy Butler, which is what he's going to turn next September.
Yeah, you can't do that. So anyway, but back to the Celtics. It's just a brief little maybe blip on the radar screen. But then I just didn't like to watch the way that they have played the last couple of games. And there's one other thing that we knew from the start. It's always going to be the story until and that is. Can Porzingis get out of bed without hurting himself? And ankle now this time, in the game, that you just have to accept that that's is it ever going to change? I don't know, but so they lost him for the second half in Philly. Maybe they win the game if they got him. Who knows if they're going to have him for when they're going to get him back? I don't know. So anyway, there's that. And
they didn't have Drew Holiday. They didn't have Drew Holiday in that game also. And last I checked, he's pretty important to the culture of that team.
And in that game, now, my guy Pritchard had been playing so well, but that night he didn't come up big. He was 1 for 9. He's bailed them out a few times this year already, but that was one night he didn't have it.
All right, so your panic meter right now for the Celtics, 0 to 10. Where is it, Bob? Where is it?
2.5 to 3.
Mine's
3 maybe.
Mine's
I don't want to over dramatize it, but I just identify that these are and that it happened, and these games they're not comfortable to watch, and one was a blown lead, and the other one was a comeback that fell short.
You know what it is?
Anyway,
it's Boston fans. Bob, it's Boston fans right now. And
I still think it's the best roster in the league. I still think on paper that the best 5, the best 8, and the best 10. And so they disappoint me when they don't play up to my standard in that regard. Okay, I'll just put it that way.
All right, okay. That's fair. All right, I want to get to another topic that I'm not even sure we're planning on talking about, but I want to get your take on this because it was kind of a big point of contention over the Christmas break was NBA ratings. NBA ratings. I hate ratings. Honestly, I hate talking about it. So I'm not going to talk about ratings specifically. I want to talk about the game itself. And are you a believer that that people aren't as into the NBA as they were 5-10 years ago? And if so, why? Is it the 3-point shot, which people are? Listen, you've been preaching this for a while. Is it the 3-point shot? Is it the influx of international players? Is it that LeBron and KD were like not tired of watching them, but kind of tired of watching them? Steph, even what is it? If you believe that,
I have a hard time juxtaposing the attendances versus the ratings. Attendance is good. Everywhere. I mean, the attendance is fine, and nobody. It's what it should be, I think. But ratings, they say. Once again, I hate ratings too. I hate skeptic. It's not my favorite topic in the world. Then in the midst of all this, we're told that the ratings on Christmas Day were astronomically higher than last year. Why is that? I have no idea.
I think part of it was the games. The games are on ABC. The games are on ABC,
Yeah.
and they only went head to head with maybe 2 football games or something. I think that's why.
The two of them were. It turned out 2 of them were outstanding. The one I watched, the Knicks and the Spurs. That's the best game I have seen all year. Okay, the best, highest level standard NBA game. The way I think the NBA likes to think of itself. That game did, and then it was almost apparently outdone later at night by the Warriors and the Lakers. That game was an outstanding game, very dramatically. Okay, so fine. It's a very good question. I'll tell you this: based on my exes, my ex sample, the more people than I would have suspected are on my side in the disdain for the 3. There's more people than I would have suspected. And I do get this every day. I get somebody complaining about the 3-point shooting contest known as the NBA. And this makes me feel good, by the way, because you know what I feel about the 3. But I don't know if I'm surprised that many people, because I was led to believe that given that it's been around in the NBA since 1979-80, and that obviously generations have grown up of people, you'd be 30, 35, 40-year-old people have never known a game that didn't have the 3. So this is the game they know. Some of them falling out of love with it. I don't know, but I think it's an issue. The other thing that you hear about all the time that angers people is the traveling, the palming that that we don't even ever hear called, and the officiating
load
situation.
Management. Bob, load management.
Yep.
Right.
So, yeah. So that's and. So I don't think there's a crisis or anything in the NBA yet, but I think it's something they have to be concerned about. But what's going to happen? The 3 ain't going anywhere.
No.
Now people come up with some proposals. Get rid of it from the corner. Change the arc nature, make it longer. Well, yeah. Okay, fine.
All right, Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. I play it all the time, and I know a lot of my buddies play it, and they love it. You can use MasterCard now for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. So join now, because this holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December. They're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas. So download the app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game, and make sure you check it out. All right, Bob. Steph versus LeBron. Could that be the last time we see that on Christmas? Or, how much are you going to miss these 2 guys? And are you still – they're obviously still playing at a high level. But the one caveat to that is – they haven't been able to get their team and carry their team deep into the playoffs anymore. That was the difference 5 years ago. 5 years ago, you could look at them and they were playing at a high level and they had a chance to win the title. Now you look at their teams and you just say, like, is it because of them falling off, or is it because those GMs haven't put enough around both of them?
Well, I mean, I think it's the latter, particularly with the Lakers. They've been struggling. They tried to address their problem about shooting when they picked up Hachimura. They drafted Connect, who was a shooter. Reeves, who can shoot, and I think they've addressed it. Their issue, one of their issues remains the same. Guess who's not playing right now? Got hurt in the game, 7 minutes into the game. Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
So when they have Anthony Davis, who was having a good year when he's out there as usual, and then the Warriors, it was inevitable. They couldn't. It was going to. I won't say change, deteriorate. They had their run, and Thompson's gone, and now and Raymond is definitely fading, and Curry himself was 36, whatever, 37. That's just inevitable. The changing of the guard taking place in the West, So, but that was a nice throwback thing. It was wonderful, and it was a nice Christmas present for fans who watched it, And I was kind of touched by the camaraderie, the hugging, the two. They really, they shared gold medals together, and they've had that, and obviously their sophistication and love of basketball. They appreciate who each other are. They're not the same player. They're a different player, but they're both extremely high level players and all time players. That's nice. No, it could be the last Christmas one. Yeah, it could be. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it looks like LeBron has no intention of retiring. I don't think, to tell you the truth. But and as long as he's playing at the level, he's still playing at an amazing level. And but it was nice, and that was a nice way to end the day. And it was nice. So good for them, But you're right. It's not likely to be any kind of a playoff confrontation in 2025. Although we can always be surprised. But no, it's not. Don't be looking forward to that.
Hey, is Steph, when he retires, do you think Steph Curry is going to be considered a top 10 player of all time?
That's an interesting thing. When you do it's getting very crowded. We've got new guys. I know how I've framed my 10, and he wasn't in my 10, but he certainly, you can make a very, very strong case for him. I mean, if we believe that he is the greatest all-around shooter of all time, and I certainly believe that, it's you have to make a case for him, But
who was 10 for you? Who was 10, Bob?
Okay, well, this is just. I have to start off with the one thing that always starts off with. Any list of the top 10 has to have the three centers. The three centers, of course, are Russell, Chamberlain, and Kareem. That's a given.
Yep.
Then we've got Magic. Then we got Michael and LeBron in terms of virtuosos. That's 5. Magic and Larry, or Larry and Magic. That's 6 and 7. Okay. Duncan is next up for me. That's 8. I may be underselling Kobe. I may be, but I may have to grudgingly. I don't know. I have nothing against him, so so that's not it. Not like I don't like Harden. I admit it. I don't like his game, but I have nothing against Kobe. So if you put Kobe 9, I know a lot of people love Shaq, but I think I'm not a big Shaq guy. So you could say Curry could be 10 or 9 and 10, and there you go right there.
Yep.
But
he's knocking on the door. He's right there. He's right there.
But we got guys. How's it all going to end for Jokic? And we got another guy that has to be considered. And I don't want to slight him in the least, and that's Durant.
Yeah.
Durant is great all time. Come on, let's get serious. And so he has to be in that discussion. And it's like all these discussions, no matter what sport, no matter what, there's no right and wrong, unless someone just goes completely off the rails and nominates somebody completely crazy. But basically these are all, you can make a case for them. Excuse me. Then we have a problem. I have a problem. What about Oscar Robertson? I would have to. People, And of course, my guy Havlicek, who's the most underrated, people don't even appreciate how good he was. And I'll say that for the 10th, he was better at the end of his career, the last 5 years, than both Robertson and West, but people don't realize that. Anyway, you got Oscar and Jerry, and you got Havlicek, and now we're up to about 12, and there was the answer. But Curry's in that discussion, yes, absolutely.
No doubt. No doubt. All right. I know how much you love going to games. I love going to games as well. Make sure you check out Game Time Tickets. I'm going to do it actually when we're done here because I got to get tickets for the Carolina Hurricanes game. And then my daughter's covering NC State Clemson women basketball. So I got to get tickets for that. So I'm going to browse through their app. You can find seats on Game Time Picks. Great deals on there as well. It's a perfect gift to get people this holiday season. You can see there's a super deal on there. You can see the seats before you pick what tickets you're going to buy. They have a lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection. They have all that. So make sure you check out Game Time Picks for any, whether it's sports, whether it's theater, whether it's concerts, whatever it is. Game Time Picks is the place to go for all your ticket needs. Bob, what do we got next?
Well, I guess got to throw one more name in there so people don't think, and that's Giannis. He's going to be in that discussion.
Yep.
Obviously.
Yep.
Okay. All
right. I know you had a story, I believe. I believe you had a story for me.
Last night, the Hawks had a very remarkable game. They were down by 21 points, which is no big deal. But they won the game by hitting them with a 50-point fourth quarter, 50-5-0. Very rare to have a 50, which leads me to the fact that the record. Do you know what the record is for most points in a period in the NBA history? You have any idea?
No, 60.
Well, no, close. The answer is 58.
Wow.
I covered on October 20th, 1972, the Boston Celtics played a home game against the Buffalo Braves. At the end of the third quarter, the score was Boston 103, Buffalo 60. That is a 43-point advantage. In the fourth period, the Buffalo Braves, led mostly by Randy Smith, who went off, scored a record 58 points in the fourth quarter against the Celtics, outscoring the Celtics 58-23, thereby reducing the final margin of victory to 8 at 126-118. That's remarkable enough in itself, but that's not the best part. 126-118, Celtics win. You know what the spread was?
Go ahead.
8.
Was it really?
You had the Celtics at the end of the third period. You're up by 43. You had the Celtics plus 8, up 43. You're feeling pretty good, right? Guess what? It was a push. How about that?
Amazing.
It was a push. That is the most amazing betting. That's two reasons why I don't bet. I mean, well, that's one of them. And the other was Earl Monroe throwing the ball in the wrong basket to change the spread. So that's another. We won't get into that one. So,
all right. Let's end this. Let's end this, Bob, with an ode to Jim Larranaga at Miami.
Oh yes,
who called it quits. Timing was a little bit weird, but they're horrible right now. I saw them play 3 games down here in Charleston about a month ago, and he looked kind of disinterested. They have talent, but they're hard. I mean, they were brutal. They lost all 3 games, and they've lost 8 of their last 9. So he basically decided, all right, I'm done. I'm done at this point. And he's had a hell of a career. I mean, he went to the Final Four as a head coach at George Mason, started his career at Bowling Green. George Mason, Final Four, improbable one. And then another improbable one a couple of years ago at Miami. Followed up, it was Elite 8 and then a Final Four. And he's in his 70s. I actually said this when I saw him in Charleston, Bob. I said, it's time. It's time for him, and it's time for the Miami program. I thought he'd get through this year and then retire. Number one, any stories, any good Larranaga stories that you have, because he was a Providence College guy?
Well, not only that, I focused on him when he dropped 37 on BC when he was at Providence one night. And
He's
good player,
yeah.
a good player. No, that George Mason story at the time, they were the first Cinderella. We've had a few since, with Florida Atlantics and all that stuff, and San Diego State and all that. But they were the one that you can't exaggerate the scope of how dramatic that was, and the nature of the way they did it back in 2006. It was as I recall, one of their best players didn't even play, and they still
Tony Skin.
still won.
Yeah. And they beat that UConn team. Remember, the UConn team they beat was loaded to get there. I mean, I think UConn had lost like 3 games the whole year. It's a team with Rudy Gay on it. And Boston's own Jeff Adrian was on that team too. And that George Mason team they were fun to watch.
And with Larranaga I won't say he's a character, but he's got personality.
Yep.
He was a good coach. He was a guy that was good for us in our business, to have him in it. It was good. And so wish him well. But here we go. This is Jay Wright, Tony Bennett, same club, folks. But you're right. He's 75. He's worn out a little bit. And but I love the story he told, though. It said that they were flying. They go to the Final Four in 2023 at Miami, and either on the way home or whatever, 4 of the players announced to them that they want to leave, and they want to go make some money, and this is where we are, folks. I'm sorry, and some people are better equipped to handle this and negotiate it, and then others. So
I have an issue with
totally
that.
Different.
Bob, I have an issue with him saying that, and here's my issue. He benefited as much as anybody when NIL came in. If you remember, it became public that Nigel Pack, who had transferred from Kansas State, was going to get $400,000 each of the next 2 years. Came out there, John Ruiz, the guy from Life Wallet or something. Their stock has plummeted lately, but he was the one who made it public, what he was giving these players, football and basketball. And they make this run. They go to the Elite Eight, the Final Four, and you never hear Jim Larranaga crying about NIL back then because he had the advantage then. He had more money, and now he complains about it. I just think it doesn't do it for me. It doesn't, because you have the NIL still somewhat this year, by the way. You have a kid in Jaleel Bethea who's a top 20 freshman. Now he's not. He's not. He was misevaluated in a lot of ways. But you have talent on this team. Maybe not as much talent as you had a couple of years ago when you had Isaiah Wong and Jordan Miller. But, I just feel like, Jim, you're probably not the one that should be saying this because you benefited more than anybody in your Final Four run, and never once did I hear you complain then. And now you're complaining because your team stinks.
Yeah, I would totally grant you that. I think that's a very fair assessment of the situation. But he will be missed, and I think in the fraternity, so that's
the question. Is who's next? That's the question now. Is who's next, Bob? Because, like you're saying, and again, Jim might have retired at the end of the year, no matter what. 75. Okay, you know what? Leonard Hamilton's in his 70s. He's probably next. But who's the one that probably shouldn't go? That's going to go because of the changing climate and revenue sharing coming in and NIL and the portal and money. And I would say for my money, it's Mark Few at Gonzaga, who's in his early 60s. I think he's done here in the next year or two. And I was spot on Tony Bennett. He was the first one. I said it. It happened. I said Tony Bennett and Mark Few. But those are the two that I think I could see. I could see Mark Few being next.
Mark Few nominated for the Hall of Fame, by the way.
Yes.
He's on the list. But what a career! Is he's not? I don't know if he's got the best win-loss percentage of all time, but he's got to have one of the highest great win-loss percentages ever. There's no question. 25 years now, I believe.
You still have not been to a game at Gonzaga.
Not made it out to a game in Gonzaga. Yeah.
I know. I'm not going this year. I'm not. Otherwise, I would bring you along for the trip. But I don't. Maybe next year. Maybe next year we do it. It could be. I could see next year being it for Mark Few.
as long as we're talking about the coaches, we can wish a happy birthday from our Ryan Goodman Tangway podcast for Bill Self. Bill Self birthday. Speaking of successful coaches.
How old is Bill Self today?
Great.
Wow.
I believe it was 60. Yeah. Yeah.
One of the best. One of the best.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us. Another episode of the Ryan and Goodman podcast. We'll have Gary back next week from his gallivanting around Costa Rica. Maybe he'll have a sunburn and all. And happy holidays to all. Happy holidays to all that listen. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you next week.